And so my question for you, and then my question for Osborne as well, would be, is what you're doing right now very inspiring? Do you find yourself needing to talk yourself into going to do this stuff, or are you, pumped about doing it?
I'm excited. Like, I really look forward to these workouts. In fact, when I was trying to add like cardio days, this might have been before we talked last time. I was saying, okay, maybe I need a couple days a week of just cardio, but I need to go to the gym because that's the place where this happens. That's the structure I need. I could talk myself out of going on those days. That'd be much more likely than talking myself out of a workout day. Like, I do look forward to going to the gym, and because you're always, you're progressively trying to add more weight every time you go back to do the same workout. It's exciting almost to see what you'll do the next time, or what I'll do the next time, because there's gains almost every time.
Yeah.
Like, there haven't really been significant plateaus, and every couple months you stop, you take a week off, from doing this. Because it is pretty taxing on the joints to be moving that kind of weight at that kind of frequency. So, I would say I'm fairly motivated for parts of my movement routine. How about you, Osborne?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I get excited or pumped about it, but I also don't need to talk myself into it. It's something I decided a long time ago that I was going to do, and so now it's just a thing I do.
Okay.
Right, like a habit, I guess.
Yeah. So there's two kind of principal things here. The first is that I'm always a fan of activities more than exercises, because I think activities naturally build in a lot of variety of movement and a variety of how the muscles are recruited for the activity that you're doing. And most people don't realize the amount of variety that's built into many different activities. You can get into a frame of mind where you're fooling yourself almost, thinking you're getting a lot of variety in a gym. Whereas if you were simply doing an activity that you love to do, you'd be getting far more variety of movement. Even if you're changing up the exercises that you're doing a lot, or doing a lot of different exercises, it still probably doesn't add up to the way that your body would be recruiting muscles if you were doing an activity. And so I'll give you some examples of this. My philosophy, here's my protocol. My protocol is called DWYLT, Do What You Love Today. I wrote an article on it, rebootedbody.com/DWYLT. And this was a strategy that I came up with after creating workout plans and workout schedules and, a bunch of fancy stuff, and realizing that shit doesn't inspire me, and I cannot stick to it, and I will not do it. Eventually, I'll just sabotage myself. I'll run out of willpower, and I'll quit doing everything altogether. I won't do any movement whatsoever, just because that's the cycle that I get into. So this DWYLT philosophy is, you make a list, like a master list, of all of the physical activities that you love to do that inspire you. So my list right now is walking. And by the way, there's going to be some things on this list that are very familiar to people. So walking, sprinting, cycling, swimming, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, MMA, slacklining, rock climbing, hiking, yoga, running, flag football, ultimate frisbee, sandbag resistance training, and tennis. So what I do is every morning I wake up, I know I have to walk. I have to walk 30 to 60 minutes that day. At some point, it doesn't have to be at a certain time of the day, but that day I have to collect 30 to 60 minutes of walking. It's just what human beings have to do. There's no getting around that. On top of that, I build in one of these DWYLT activities. So what I do is I look at this master list and I say, what inspires me the most today? What do I really want to go engage in today from this list? I pick it and I go do it. All right. And that's it. So if I pick going to the gym that day, that's what I pick, because sometimes I am inspired to go to the gym. I'm not always inspired to go to the gym, but sometimes I am. If it's hiking, then I go do that. If it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I go do that. Now, using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as an example, unless you've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you don't really understand what I'm about to tell you. But you can be a Olympic caliber sprinter. You can go to the gym and train weights. What was it called? Dog crap training?
Dog crap, yeah.
You can be professional dog crap trainer and go do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you will wear your ass out because the muscles and the style of how your body recruits muscles doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is unlike anything else. Like, you can't get in shape for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu unless you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's an example of how an activity is very specific to how muscles are used and recruited. It would be the same thing with tennis. People always go out and do a new activity and they're like, wow, I didn't know those muscles existed, right? It's because you've never used them before. Activities recruit these muscles in a very unique variety of ways, which is why I believe it's better to engage in activities like this, real life activities. And there's other benefits as well. Being out in the sun, being with other people in a different format. You know, being in a gym by yourself is completely different from rolling on the ground with another jiu-jitsu artist, right? Like, very different experience. So we're getting a variety in that regard as well. If I'm out doing cycling, I'm getting vitamin D. I'm out in the real world, you know? So there's a lot of benefits to, I believe, prioritizing activities over exercise. And at the same time, I'm never at a loss for motivation. Like, if I'm not motivated to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I go to MMA. If I'm not motivated to do MMA, I go cycling. There's always a plan Z, right? There's so many options for me that it's easily sustainable. When I look at, and this is one thing I ask people, you know, can you do dog crap training when you're 60 or 70? Will you still be doing it? Even if you can, will you still be doing it? Will you still be inspired to do it? My Dwight list can change at all times. Like, tennis is a recent one that I just added. So there is no loss of motivation ever. And I know that I can sustain this for the rest of my life. So that is the protocol that I follow. And I think a lot of people who have implemented that in their own life have found amazing results as well.
Excellent. I made a list while you were talking.
Yes.
And if you want to think about one, Osborne, while I go through mine. Yoga is a new activity for me. So I don't know if I'll love it or I'll hate it. I'm extremely not flexible. So I'm looking for, and I've heard nothing but good things. You know, so I'm actually going to go try yoga tomorrow at my gym at 8:30 a.m. Racquetball, which I dream about. Racquetball, the two physical activities that nobody would ever have to put. I mean, like, racquetball might only be behind sex, as far as, like, you don't even know you're getting a workout. It is. Right. Have you ever played?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is the most fun, and I'm almost like angry with people when they tell me they don't like ping pong and racquetball. Racquetball is like 3D ping pong.
Right.
Would you play racquetball, Osborne?
No, I wouldn't.
God damn you!
All those kinds of those kind of activities, I get really just fearful about. Breaking things and twisting ankles and.
Oh, here's some other information. Yeah. Here's some other information. I'm 5'10", which I might have mentioned last time. Osborne is 6'4". Okay. And I weigh now high 170s. What's your weight?
270.
270. So we have different builds, which makes it hard for us to be activity partners.
Well, you guys definitely need to do jiu-jitsu together.
So you go do the racquetball with someone else, but you can come back and do the sex with me.
All right. Exactly. Yeah, so anyway, I would love to find, and I'm really trying to recruit Osborne for racquetball for really selfish reasons, because his gym, where I am not a member, because it's very expensive, has racquetball courts, and nowhere else in town has them.
Yeah.
So, and ping pong is not a substitute, unfortunately. Hacky sack, which sounds silly when I first say it, but it is exercise if you do it by yourself. And
right.
I mean, it can, with 3 people who are fairly good, it could be exercise, but hacky sack, something I probably have to do by myself. Walking is on the list. I don't love walking, but it would be a great time for me to be learning, because I could be listening to audiobooks. And rollerblading would be another one, but you really have to be conscious of, the amount of effort that you're putting into it. Otherwise, you're just kind of coasting along on skates, and there's nothing cool about that.
Yeah.
So, that's my list. I'd always be looking for things to add to it. You? Osborne?
Yeah, my problem is I really hate activity. Right, so this is why I've had to create this compartmentalization of movement. So this is the time I do my movement.
I feel the same way.
I get it over with, and then I can go do the things I want to do.
Yeah. What are the things you want to do, though?
They all involve sitting and computers.
Yeah, exactly. Or the movie theater.
There is that. Yeah.
What if we just
do you have resistance to activities from a certain place in your mind? Like, so I can imagine that some people would fear, twisting an ankle or something, or getting injured or appearing not athletic. I know a lot of people are afraid to sign up for classes for certain things because they don't want to be the new guy, right? And they don't want to they don't want to feel like they're never going to get good at it or won't be good at it, and they just are more comfortable saying no. I think I'll just stick with what I've got going on.
So for certain activities, yes, definitely, I would have fear of, particularly with my knees. That's why I haven't gotten into skiing yet. I'd like to get a little more fit before I go embark on that. And racquetball, tennis, those things are just right out, I think.
Yeah.
Have you had knee injuries before?
Yes, I've had a couple episodes in the last 2 years where I've had to nurse through some issues.
Okay. And then are there any, if you had to, let's say that you were not concerned about your knees, you weren't concerned about injury, and you weren't concerned about athleticism, are there any activities that you think would inspire you?
I think skiing is one that comes to mind.
Okay. Anything that's more accessible? Because you need a lot of, stuff to do that.
I cannot think of any.
Yeah, the closest thing is sledding, and that's like no exercise. Well, no, going back up. Yeah. So it's kind of interval.
So I would encourage you to maybe put a little bit more thought into that, branch out. I mean, I could just see you possibly going in and doing a boxing class or something. Like, that's something that doesn't require any use of your knees or whatever. You're just punching a bag, right? Great stress relief, great workout. And like I said, this is not something you have to do 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and put on a schedule. It's just something to try. Doing a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, because you're on the ground. You're not going to be using your knees. And you can tell people, they even in the beginner classes, they're not going to do like leg locks or anything like that. So your knees are going to be protected in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. But you're going to get to use your body in ways that you've never used them before, learn some self-defense simultaneously, get a great workout, and so on and so forth. And these are just things to experiment with, because a lot of times, like, motivation, I've talked before, doesn't come before you do the activity. Motivation comes from doing the activity. Like when I'm a photographer, right? And sometimes I go through periods where I have zero motivation to pick up a camera and take pictures. Well, on vacation last year, I took my camera with me, and I was in one of those points where I had zero motivation whatsoever. And I picked up the camera, went out to take pictures of my daughter because my wife asked me to. First 3 pictures I took, the motivation instantly came back. Like, I was into the groove, and then picked right back up for days after that. The motivation came from doing the activity, from being engaged in it, from seeing and experiencing the activity again. And a lot of times that happens for people with the types of activities that I've just listed. So instead of sitting around like hoping to one day be inspired to do some of these activities, I would encourage you to just make it a test, maybe once a month. Make it a point to just do one of these activities, not worry about, the chances that you're going to get injured are very low. Even if you're uncoordinated or not athletic, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody cares, right? So breaking through that stuff and just forcing yourself to do it once, and then see what happens from there. And you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I can identify with a lot of what you're saying. And you even mentioned before, like, this trouble around trying a new activity or feeling like the new guy. And I identified too, like Osborne, that I had this really negative attitude towards these types of things. I was a fat kid. I was made fun of. I loved baseball. I tried to play baseball. I was made fun of. They called me Froggy because I ran funny. And like, there's memories of these things.
Yeah, you create an identity out of that. Like, you're like, I'm not the exerciser guy. I'm not the activity guy. I'm not the fit guy. And then you start to live out that identity rather than and any really attempt to change that identity comes with a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
So it can be a very vicious cycle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, health and fitness has always had too much of a focus on appearance. But I'm excited. I'm excited about that part of it. And the truth is that I do feel a lot better. Like having less stress in my life is tremendously beneficial to me, and it's just made a world of difference. So there are other things that I'm happy about, but yeah, I think for me, having grown up like kind of awkward and chubby, appearance really carries more weight in this whole pursuit than I think it should. And I know what works to make me look good on the outside. And that's why I really think that the weightlifting stuff and doing core, like doing ab stuff, is such an anchor part of my routine that it's basically become for a long time my whole routine. And it's been a challenge to add things around that I know are good for me. Yeah, I think, long story short, I've had this negative attitude towards towards activity generally, really. Except once I know something produces results, something feels good, I'm comfortable in that environment, it's very hard to incorporate anything new into that. So I tried to make a list, including walking and the other things that I named, and maybe just trying to do, in addition to my anchor routine, adding one of those activities a day. So, because we talked last time, you talked about walking, right? So I said, there's no way I'm going to go for a walk a half an hour a day. So I set myself up to fail, basically.
Yeah.
I could walk for half an hour twice a week, and have other activity. Like I could just take the hacky sack right out into the parking lot and hack it around for, 20 minutes and probably get similar results. And I'm moving in ways that, if a person was moving in those ways without a hacky sack, then someone would throw a net over them, right? So my body usually doesn't move like that at all. And, that actually... I stand by that. I think it's fairly good exercise if you're alone. And the other things I mentioned as well. So supplementing the anchor routine with just a different activity each day, and not like making it into it has to be for this exact amount of time, or I have to burn this many calories, tracking it with a Fitbit. Yeah. I just have to, I'm benefiting by adding it, right? And that's maybe all it has to be until it becomes a routine and it translates to motivation.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't schedule anything. Scheduling has so much resistance around it, and that's when the guilt comes in too, because you put something on the schedule, and if it doesn't happen, it's like, oh God, again, I didn't live up to my blah blah blah, and that creates that downward cycle that just leads to failure.
Yeah.
But giving Osborne like some more suggestions that aren't activity related, what does your day look like, Osborne? Like, what do we have to work with here?
I have an office.
And you're there for most of the day?
Pretty much the entire day, yeah.
Do you create your own schedule, or?
Yeah, more or less. I can in principle do what I want. So.
Okay. So that means potentially, instead of a walk in the morning that's 2 hours long or 90 minutes long or whatever, you could do an hour in the morning and then maybe 2 more 20-minute walks at other points of the day.
I could, yes.
Okay. So that would be like the first suggestion that I would make, is to start spreading some of that movement out. So it would be great to take a break and walk right after you eat lunch, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And then another one kind of like, 3 p.m.-ish, before you're getting ready to go home, take another 20-minute walk. And then maybe after you get home, I don't know what time you get home, but you can throw in a walk at night as well. Just quick ones. They can be 10 minutes. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 15 minutes. Doesn't matter. But just start to spread this out during the day. Then the other suggestion I would make is to set a Pomodoro timer. So it's basically a timer that goes off every 50 minutes or 45 minutes. You can set it for whatever you want. But the timer goes off every 50 minutes. You get up, you do some stretches, you do some mobility work, maybe roll on the foam roller, do some push-ups, do some squats, go out for a walk at that point in time. Anything you want to do during that little period. So you have 50 minutes of work, you have 10 minutes of movement, and then the timer starts again. 50 minutes of work, 10 minutes of movement. 50 minutes of work, 10 minutes, and you just do that all day long. And this is actually good for productivity too, because when you take those breaks, you get your brain disengaged, you come back to it, you're refreshed, you're ready to go again. It's kind of benefit all around.
This is it. That's the key. Because this allows you to keep a schedule without the calendar.
Yes.
right? So it's for me, it's providing a similar kind of certainty that I always dream about getting from writing all this shit down, right? I just redid my to-do list in like a grid.
Yeah.
That I try to put times into. This is a giant failure after 6 or 7 days of trying. This doesn't work because if it goes off, like if I don't wake up and then do these things, it's screwed for the day, basically. Yep. So that is abandoned. This idea of knowing the things I need to do every day and using this system, which we've actually talked about on the show before, for productivity. I'm implementing this immediately. I'll wait till the end of the show, but
right.
This is fantastic. That is a great idea. What do you think of that?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have different levels of enthusiasm, but we're both in agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking it through. So I'm just trying to figure out how I need to, like, I have to be like Superman and like change my clothes in order. Like, I'm not going to get out and do my stretches and squats in my suit.
Right.
That's probably not going to go very well. So.
It's not. So do other things that you can do in a suit. And you don't have to get all sweaty or anything. So it's not like you need showers to do this. But yeah, the other thing you can do is, make a lot of adjustments so people have this new standing desk obsession. Instead of the standing desk, it's not really standing versus sitting. It's just not moving. That's the problem. It's not moving. So what I do a lot of times is I will switch between a chair and standing and like a big exercise ball, sit on that instead of a chair. Therefore, like your core is engaged. You're kind of bouncing up and down a little bit as you type, whatever.
Yep.
Anytime my phone rings, I get up and I walk while I talk on the phone. I never talk on the phone sitting down. Because I don't need to be doing anything else except talking to this person, and I don't need my computer for that. So I get up and I go on a walk. If they call me on the landline, like in an office or something, I say, hey, I'm going to call you back on my cell phone. Boom, I'm out the door, and I start walking down the street while I'm talking to this person. I come back, sit down, do more work again. Like building in movement throughout the day like this as a systematic approach and not compartmentalizing things is going to be a critical piece.